For most of my life, I lived in the capital city, but a few years ago, I decided to move to a quieter area near a beautiful lake. It was a big change, but I needed it. My job allowed me to work remotely, so I didn't need a car. Plus, the train ride to the city was only about 2 hours, which wasn't bad when I needed to visit for work or see friends. The train rides were usually peaceful, giving me time to work on my laptop or just enjoy the scenery. But there was this one trip that I'll never forget. It started like any other day. I boarded the train, found my reserved seat in the first-class intercity section, and settled in for the journey. Now, you need to understand something about our train system. We have different classes and sections, including a special intercity part that's a bit fancier. It's got better seats, air conditioning, and you need a reservation to sit there. It's not free even for seniors, who usually ride for free in the regular sections. So there I was, minding my own business, when this older lady walks in. She starts yelling about how young people these days are so rude, not giving up their seats. I could tell she was eyeing my seat in particular. It was a good spot, close to the entrance and the toilet, and on the side was only 2 seats instead of 3. I tried to be polite and explain the situation to her. I started to greet her and tell her about the intercity section requiring a seat reservation, but she cut me off before I could finish. She rudely declared that she didn't care and demanded my seat. I tried to explain again, but she wasn't having it. Instead, she started pushing her purse into me, getting more aggressive by the second. I was worried she might damage my laptop, so I decided it was time to get the staff involved. As soon as I stood up to find the ticket inspector, she snatched my seat. When the inspector arrived, things really kicked off. The ticket inspector politely asked to see the lady's ticket and seat reservation. The lady angrily responded that she didn't need a reservation because she was a senior citizen who rode for free. The inspector calmly explained that even though she was a senior, this was the intercity section, where everyone needed a reservation regardless of age. The lady then complained about the lack of respect for elders these days. The inspector tried to explain the rules, but Karen just got more agitated. She started complaining about the air conditioning, but refused to move to a different part of the train. Then came the fines, one for taking a reserved seat, one for not having a reservation, and another for being in first class without paying the upgrade fee. The lady then started making threats, saying that in the old days, her husband, who was an important party official, would have had us all arrested and sent to work camps. It was clear she was used to throwing her weight around, thinking she was above the rules. But times had changed, and her outdated threats weren't working. As the situation escalated, the ticket inspector offered to let me sit elsewhere while they dealt with the lady. I gladly accepted, not wanting to be in the middle of the storm anymore. The lady continued to protest, demanding to speak to a superior. The ticket inspector informed her that he was the superior on this train, and that she needed to pay the fines or they would involve the police at the next station. The lady reluctantly agreed to pay but threatened to file a complaint upon arrival. The whole ordeal was causing delays, and I could see other passengers getting annoyed. But honestly, I couldn't blame the railway staff. They were just doing their jobs, dealing with a passenger who refused to follow the rules. As we approached the next station, the lady was still fuming. She'd paid the fines but was making everyone's life miserable with her constant complaints and threats. That's when the ticket inspector had enough. The inspector informed the lady that, due to her continued disruptive behavior, she would have to leave the train at the next station. The lady protested, claiming she had rights. The inspector calmly pointed out that the other passengers also had rights, including the right to a peaceful journey. When we pulled into the station, 2 police officers were waiting on the platform. The lady threw one last fit as they escorted her off the train, yelling about how she'd sue everyone involved. As the train pulled away, leaving the lady on the platform with the police, a collective sigh of relief went through our car. An elderly gentleman across the aisle caught my eye and chuckled. He commented on the spectacle we'd just witnessed, noting how some people struggle to accept change. I agreed, mentioning that I had just wanted a quiet trip to work on my laptop. The gentleman then gave me some friendly advice about enjoying my youth and work, and not letting people like her sour my view of all elderly people. We shared a laugh, and the rest of the journey passed uneventfully. But it got me thinking about how things had changed over the years. The free transportation for seniors was meant to be a nice gesture, but it had created some unexpected problems. You see, some elderly folks had started treating the trains and buses like their personal lounges. They'd ride around all day, saving on heating bills at home and looking for company. It was causing conflicts with paying passengers who actually needed to get somewhere. The government eventually caught on and made some changes. They added a small fee for certain long-distance trains, which even seniors had to pay. They also created a discount club for regular passengers, which actually made things cheaper for a lot of us frequent travelers. First, some background. I struggle with agoraphobia, which means I have frequent panic and anxiety attacks. Because of this, I rarely leave my apartment. and even small tasks can be incredibly stressful for me. Luckily, I have a childhood friend who lives in the same apartment complex. He's in charge of maintenance for this and several other buildings, so the management knows about my condition. Let's call him my friend. A couple of months ago, I decided to get a kitten to keep me company. I named him Hobbs, after Calvin and Hobbes. Little did I know, this adorable bull of fur would become the center of a ridiculous drama. A few weeks after I brought Hobbs home, my friend's son heard about the kitten and brought over a group of kids to play with him. One of the kids, let's call him the neighbor boy, kept saying how much he wanted to keep Hobbs. He even asked me if he could have him. I said no, of course, thinking he was just joking around. But then things got weird. The neighbor boy started showing up at my door every single day, knocking repeatedly, about 20 times a day. My friend's son, bless him, knew about my condition and would often pull the neighbor boy away. I was grateful for that, but the constant disruptions were still taking a toll on me. One day, I woke up to find my back door wide open. Panic set in immediately. Hobbs was gone, and I fell into an anxiety attack. Once I calmed down, I hoped he'd come back on his own, but I also started trying to figure out who had broken into my apartment. My friend, being the neighborhood expert, pointed out that the couple living behind me had a camera watching their car, which happened to be right next to my back door. He asked them if they could check the footage, and they were happy to help. Now I had my suspicions about the neighbor boy, but I didn't want to accuse a child without proof. Good thing I waited, because it wasn't him who came into my apartment. It was his mother, the Karen of our story. The camera footage showed her opening my back door, walking straight in, and coming out moments later with my cat. The neighbors even checked the previous nights and saw that she had been trying my door every night for several days. I know many people would say I should have called the police immediately, but please understand, this situation was already incredibly stressful for me, and getting the authorities involved would only make it worse. Instead, my friend and I decided to confront Karen directly. We went to her apartment, and I let my friend do the talking. When Karen answered the door, she greeted us with an annoyed tone, demanding to know what we wanted. My friend didn't miss a beat. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy, and he laid it out for her. He told Karen that we knew she had my cat and explained how things were going to go. He said she needed to return the cat and apologize, and then make her son apologize for constantly knocking on my door. He warned her that if she didn't comply, we'd involve the police not just for breaking and entering, but also because he knew she had drugs in her apartment. He mentioned seeing them during his maintenance visits and suggested they skip the denial part and get straight to resolving the situation. During his speech, Karen's face went through a whole range of emotions, from annoyance to indignation to worry, and then to anger. We could see the neighbor boy in the background, holding Hobbs. Karen looked like she was having an intense internal battle. Finally, she spoke, claiming we had no proof and insisting that she had bought the cat for her son. My friend asked if she was sure that's how she wanted to handle the situation. Karen responded with an angry expletive and slammed the door in our faces. At this point, we were out of options. I reluctantly agreed to call the police and report the incident. We got the recordings from the neighbors and waited for the police to arrive. When the officers showed up and heard the story, they immediately went to confront Karen. Even from a distance, I could see her mouth drop into a perfect O shape when she saw two police officers at her door. The officers explained that I wasn't pressing charges if she just gave the cat back. But, as you might expect from a Karen, she doubled down on her bad decisions. I couldn't hear exactly what was said, but Karen got louder and more enraged with each exchange. Finally, she crossed the line and tried to shove one of the officers. Next thing we knew, she was face down on the concrete being read her rights. Not that she was listening, she was too busy screeching typical entitled phrases, claiming she couldn't be treated this way, name-dropping important people she supposedly knew, and threatening to have the officers fired. It was a pretty pathetic display from a grown woman. By now, the neighbor boy was in tears, still holding my cat. He walked up to one of the officers, legs shaking, and handed him Hobbs. With a trembling voice, he asked if returning the cat meant his mom could go free. The officer was kind but explained that his mother had assaulted a cop and was likely going to jail. It almost broke my heart to see the kid in that situation. I got Hobbs back, but for a week I felt awful about making the neighbor boy see all that. However, there is a silver lining to this story. When Karen got arrested, my friend knew I wouldn't press charges, so she would likely only be charged for the assault. That's why he decided to inform management, who then pressed charges on my behalf for breaking and entering into one of their properties, as well as drug trafficking out of another property. Long story short, Karen ended up in prison. But here's the happy ending for her son. Apparently, his dad had lost a very long custody battle a couple of years prior. This incident naturally meant that he now had custody. My friend met him once when they came to get the neighbor boy's things from Karen's apartment, and he said the dad was a very nice man, the polar opposite of the boy's banshee of a mother. It turns out Karen had gained full custody mainly by lying, but now the neighbor boy will be raised by a competent and rational adult. Sometimes karma works in mysterious ways. I'm still working on my agoraphobia, but Hobbs has been a great comfort. I mean, I'm just a regular guy trying to stay in shape. I've been going to this gym for years now, ever since I moved to the city for my job in marketing. It was a nice routine. Wake up early, hit the gym before work, then start my day feeling energized. But everything changed when that entitled jerk showed up. About a month ago, I was doing my usual morning workout, minding my own business on the treadmill, when I heard this shrill whistle. At first, I thought it was some new fitness class or something. But then I saw him. This guy struts in like he owns the place, decked out in fancy workout gear that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He's got a whistle around his neck, a clipboard in one hand, and get this, two burly dudes in black t-shirts that say security following him around. I watched as he marched up to this poor woman using one of the weight machines. The entitled guy told her to leave, claiming it was his scheduled time for the equipment. The woman was confused and asked for clarification. He explained that he had a strict workout schedule and the machine was part of his routine, so she needed to find something else to use. When she protested and asked to finish her set, he refused, saying his time was too valuable to wait. Then he actually asked his security to escort her away from the machine. One of the security guys actually stepped forward and gently, but guided the woman away from the machine. She looked around, probably hoping someone would step in, but everyone was too shocked to react. That was just the beginning. Over the next few days, this guy's behavior got even more ridiculous. He started handing out these ridiculous tickets to people using his equipment. They looked like those parking violation slips, but with stuff like unauthorized use of entitled members' leg press written on them. One day I was using the rowing machine when he approached me. He told me I was violating his schedule. I tried to reason with him, saying it was a public gym and he couldn't claim equipment for himself. He insisted that he could, explaining that he paid a premium membership fee for priority access to all equipment. When I pointed out that no such membership existed, he claimed he'd made a substantial donation to the gym in exchange for special privileges. Before I could argue further, he blew his whistle, and one of his goons started walking towards us. Not wanting to cause a scene, I just shook my head and walked away. But I was fuming inside. The next week, things escalated even further. This entitled jerk hired a personal trainer, not for himself, mind you, but to follow other gym members around and critique their form. I was doing some bench presses when I heard a voice next to me. The trainer criticized my form, telling me my elbows should be at a 45-degree angle and questioning if I even lifted. I was shocked and asked for clarification. He explained that his client had tasked him with ensuring proper form throughout the gym, supposedly to prevent injuries. When I realized he meant the entitled guy, the trainer defended him, calling him a valued member who cared about others' fitness. The trainer brushed off my concerns and threatened to report me for unsafe lifting practices if I didn't correct my form. At this point, I'd had enough. I marched straight to the gym manager's office and explained everything that had been going on. To my relief, he seemed just as appalled as I was. The manager admitted he knew there were some issues but hadn't realized how bad it had gotten. He promised to take care of it right away. Finally, someone was going to put a stop to this madness. The next day, I arrived at the gym to find the entitled guy in a heated argument with the manager near the front desk. The entitled guy was outraged that his membership was being revoked and demanded to know if the manager knew who he was. The manager calmly explained that his behavior had been disruptive and inappropriate, citing numerous complaints from other members as the reason for terminating his membership. The entitled guy didn't back down, claiming he had rights and accusing the gym of violating his fitness freedom. To everyone's disbelief, he then called a lawyer right there in the middle of the gym. He demanded the lawyer come immediately, claiming the gym was infringing on his constitutional right to work out. The whole situation was so absurd that I couldn't help but burst out laughing. And you know what? That seemed to break the tension in the room. Soon, other gym members started laughing too. The entitled guy's face turned beet red as he realized how ridiculous he sounded. His security guys looked at each other awkwardly, clearly unsure of what to do. The manager told the entitled guy that there was no constitutional right to a gym membership. He asked him to leave the premises, warning that they'd call the authorities if he refused. For a moment, I thought the guy was going to explode. But then, his shoulders slumped, and all the fight seemed to go out of him. He muttered that we hadn't heard the last of him as he stormed out, followed by his embarrassed-looking entourage. People went back to their regular routines, sharing equipment and respecting each other's space like civilized human beings. And you know what? I appreciated my workouts even more after that whole incident.